What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers, and join me to talk about the very impressive 2024 NFL Draft prospect, running back out of UCLA, Mr. Carson Steele, here to help break it down with me like he was last week and for a good bit to come. As always, my brother from the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, Jay McLovin. Jay, say what's up to the people and give your high-quality draft analysis on what you like about Carson Steele, my friend. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, it's good to be here, man, and talk a lot of good football with you guys before this draft is coming up on April 25th. I know one thing I want to point out about this draft class, Logan, specifically running backs. We're talking about Carson Steele, who's a running back. It's very shallow. I mean, there's a couple of maybe two good guys in there. Not elite, but good guys in there. So I really expect these running backs to either go at the beginning or middle of the second round and then go from there. I don't think you're going to see any running backs drafted in there. I would be shocked if you saw a running back selected in this first round. But that having been said, though, yeah, you got Carson Steele. You know, he's kind of a smaller guy. He's about 6 foot, 6'1", 225 out of UCLA. I think maybe the Giants possibly could be a good fit for him. I think he goes in day 3. I don't think or either late game, either mid of day 2, or I think he sneaks into even day 3. I think is where he'll go. But I have a feeling the Giants might take a flyer on this guy. His power, he's got athletic, he's versatile, he has burst off the first step. I mean, you know, his only real weaknesses, honestly, are the long speed, right, and the agility, and lower or the fluidity of the body movement of the lower part. And what I mean by that is, when he runs, he's kind of rigid. He's kind of stiff on the upper part and then stiff on the lower part. There's not really a whole lot of. There's not a Barry Sanders. Let's put it that way. He might be more of like a Mike Allstott kind of guy, where you got power, but you really don't have that fluidity about your run game, right? This guy's not Earl Emmitt Smith for sure.
I got you. Okay, yeah. And what I like about Carson Steele is he's a guy who's kind of burst onto the scene. And I say that because his first 2 seasons in college football, he played at Ball State, and he had 2 really solid years there. 2021, close to 900 yards, 6 touchdowns on the ground. But 2022 was his breakout year, in which led him to where he's at and where he's getting drafted from, being UCLA. 2022, best season, 1,556 rushing yards, a 5.4 average, 14 touchdowns on 289 carries. All of those are career bests. And then this past year, he had a solid year all in all. 5.1 average per rush, 6 TDs, 847 yards on the ground, and also 167 rushing attempts. Also, he can get it done in the receiving game if need be, too. He's got some solid stats there. He's caught over 150 yards through all 3 seasons in the receiving game. He's gotten a touchdown as well in every single year. So if you need to toss him the ball, he's got some good and solid hands where he can catch it if need to, but he's never going to be, obviously, he's not a wide receiver. He's not a receiving back. That's more so if you're just fighting for dear life, and if he's there, toss it to him, and he'll get it done. But what I like about him, and you mentioned it, Jay, he's a guy who isn't going to really blow you away with speed in the long game. If you get into a track meet with this guy, someone might catch him, but you're not going to ever see him fumbling around and falling, getting tripped up on someone's ankles. He's got really good short speed, right? That initial burst to get through the hole. But if he could figure out a way to extend that speed, right, and get that initial acceleration down to the long field, he could be a guy who could be a sleeper. But he's balanced. He's got good balance, good agility, knows where to go. He's not going to just not go. He's not going to be a guy who you see with running backs. Say if you pitch it to the outside, right? He's not going to be the guy who's going to run back around and do a 180 where you lose 6 yards. He's going to try and get out of bounds and at least get 1 or 2 yards because he's got a high instinct, high motor. And like we said, get him in the open field, and if you get him some blockers, there's a reason he scored so many touchdowns in college. He has a nose for the end zone, man. And you mentioned that this isn't per se a stacked running back draft in the 2024 NFL draft. It's more so obviously on quarterbacks, offensive linemen, wide receivers, and running backs have kind of played second fiddle in recent seasons, as we've seen with the more additional passing you see every single year. But if you get Carson Steele in the right system, he could be a guy who could really help you out. I think that he's someone who could have a long career. I don't know if he would be a Pro Bowl caliber player or anything along those lines. It's too early to tell. However, I think that he's a guy who, if you get him and if you get him in the right system, Jay, he could be a valuable asset to your team in the running game, maybe as a third down back, and as a passing threat as well if you need him to. Don't be surprised if there's Hail Marys and he's out there, because he can go up there and get it. So I think that overall, Carson Steele, solid NFL or solid college player, going to be hearing his name in the NFL draft here very soon. And I'm excited to see where he's going to go, Jay. You mentioned the Giants. Obviously, they're looking for some more life now that Saquon Barkley has up and left them a couple of weeks ago and has went to their division rivals in the Philadelphia Eagles. So a good list there. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams who might want to take a flyer on Carson Steele. Well, Jay McLovin, man, Jason McMinn, appreciate you coming on. It's always fun talking with you, talking draft prospects. It's always a fun time, man. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Guys, go and watch some film. Go and get your notes ready, because the NFL draft is coming up in just a few short weeks. So until